What if I told you that everything you've been taught about resilience is wrong? That the strongest among us aren't the ones who merely endure chaos, but the ones who feed on it. Imagine a candle in a wildfire. A candle flickers and dies when exposed to wind. A wildfire, on the other hand, doesn't just survive the wind. It uses it, spreads, grows more powerful. Now, ask yourself, are you a candle or are you a wildfire? In Antifragile, Things That Gain from Disorder, Nassim Nicholas Taleb presents a revelation so shocking it flips our entire understanding of strength on its head. We've been conditioned to think that the best way to survive uncertainty is to insulate ourselves from it. Build walls, create safety nets, eliminate risk. But what if that's exactly what makes us fragile? What if true power comes not from protection, but from exposure, from volatility, from stress? Think about your body. Lift weights, tear muscle fibers, and they grow back stronger. Stay sedentary, avoid strain, and your body weakens, deteriorates. The same is true for economies, businesses, relationships, even entire civilizations. The systems that seek to eliminate disorder don't become stronger, they become brittle, one unexpected shock away from total collapse. Meanwhile, the systems that embrace randomness, that dance with chaos, that invite small failures, they don't just survive the storm, they become the storm. The problem is, we live in a world obsessed with safety. We're told to play it safe, get a stable job, follow the plan. But what happens when the plan fails? When the stable job vanishes? When reality refuses to conform to the spreadsheet? The anti-fragile don't break. They don't just endure. They adapt, they thrive, they grow in ways the fragile never could. So, how do we make ourselves anti-fragile? How do we stop fearing disorder and start feeding off it? That's what we're about to explore. What if I told you that everything in the world can be categorized into three types? Things that break, things that resist breaking, and things that actually benefit from being shaken, stressed, and tested. This is the fundamental idea behind antifragility. It's not just about survival, it's about growth through chaos, becoming stronger from disorder, thriving in uncertainty. But before we dive in, let's set the stage. Imagine a fragile object like a porcelain teacup. Drop it once and it shatters. Now imagine something robust like a stone. Toss it around, expose it to pressure, and it stays the same. But what if there were things that didn't just survive the drop but actually became stronger because of it? That's what anti-fragile systems do. They use stress as fuel. They gain from shocks. Think of your immune system. If you were born inside a sterile bubble, untouched by germs, your body would be utterly defenseless in the real world. But because you've been exposed to bacteria, viruses, and infections, your immune system has learned, adapted, strengthened. It's the same reason vaccines work. They introduce a small amount of harm so the body can build resilience. No exposure, no growth. This isn't just biology. Economies, too, are anti-fragile, at least when they're allowed to be. Take free markets. They fluctuate, crash, recover, and in the process, weak businesses die while stronger, more adaptive ones emerge. But when governments step in to stabilize everything, eliminating small failures, they unknowingly build fragility, creating massive bubbles that eventually burst catastrophically. The 2008 financial crisis? A perfect example of a system that had been artificially protected for too long, only to collapse under its own weight. Even in our personal lives, anti-fragility is at play. Consider relationships. A fragile relationship cracks under the slightest stress. A robust one can endure hardship. But an anti-fragile relationship? It doesn't just endure struggles, it deepens, strengthens, evolves because of them. The fights, the misunderstandings, the conflicts, they act like stressors at the gym, forcing growth, forcing adaptation. The shocking truth is that everything around us, our bodies, our minds, our careers, our societies, can be placed somewhere on this spectrum. And here's the million-dollar question. Are you building a life that is fragile, robust, or anti-fragile? Most people think the best way to deal with uncertainty is to eliminate it. But the anti-fragile seek it out. They don't avoid challenges, they welcome them, knowing that each challenge, each setback, each stressor is just another weight on the barbell of life, making them stronger, more resilient, more prepared. So how do you move from fragile to anti-fragile? First, you need to understand that this is not about being reckless. It's about exposure to controlled stress. Small failures prevent big ones. Short-term pain leads to long-term gain. The trick is to embrace volatility without being consumed by it. Now that we've defined antifragility, the real question is, how do you apply it? How do you design your life, your career, your decisions in a way that benefits from uncertainty rather than fearing it? That's where the barbell strategy comes in. What if I told you that the biggest risk in life isn't taking too many chances, it's taking too few? That playing it safe, staying in the middle, hedging your bets is actually the most dangerous thing you can do? Enter the barbell strategy, a method so counterintuitive, so against conventional wisdom, that it might just be the ultimate cheat code for surviving, thriving, and even winning in an unpredictable world. To understand this, picture a barbell. On one end, we have extreme safety, on the other, extreme risk. What's missing? The middle, the fragile space, the place where people get wiped out when things go wrong. The barbell strategy is about positioning yourself to both avoid ruin and capture massive upside, all while never being caught in the fragile middle ground where moderate risk creates the illusion of security. Let's start with investing. Imagine you put all your money into a so-called safe stock that promises steady returns. Except one day, the company collapses, the market crashes, and your safe investment evaporates. That's fragility. Now imagine you go all in on a high-risk venture. Exciting, but one bad move and you're bankrupt. That's recklessness. But what if instead you split your strategy? You put the majority of your wealth in ultra-safe assets, cash, gold, government bonds, while placing a small percentage in wild, high-upside bets, startups, crypto, asymmetric trades. Even if those high-risk bets crash, you're fine. But if one of them takes off, you win big. That's the barbell strategy. This isn't just about money. It applies to life, career, even fitness. Take health, for example. Instead of running 5 miles every day at a steady pace, moderate effort, moderate results. What if you combined low-intensity recovery with high-intensity bursts? Walking and sprinting, resting and weightlifting. This is how our bodies evolved, through extremes. It's why short bursts of intense stress, cold showers, fasting, high-resistance training, trigger adaptations that make us stronger. Now think about your career. Most people aim for stability, a 9-to-5 with a comfortable salary. It feels safe until layoffs happen, automation takes over, or the industry shifts. Suddenly, that security turns out to be an illusion. The anti-fragile career follows the barbell model, one stable source of income plus high-risk, high-upside projects, a day job combined with a side hustle, a freelance gig alongside an investment in a startup. The idea is to keep a foundation that ensures survival, while also taking calculated shots at extraordinary success. Even socially, the barbell strategy holds. Think about networking. Some people rely entirely on close friends, avoiding new interactions. Others chase superficial connections, spreading themselves too thin. The anti-fragile approach: maintain a strong inner circle while also reaching for high-value asymmetric connections. Mentors, industry leaders, people who can open doors. Here's the kicker. The world doesn't reward those who play it safe. It rewards those who have exposure to upside while minimizing their exposure to ruin. That's what the barbell strategy does. It ensures that no single failure can wipe you out while leaving the door open for exponential gains. So the next time you make a decision, whether about your money, career, health, or relationships, ask yourself, am I stuck in the fragile middle? Because if you are, you're one unexpected event away from disaster. Now you might be wondering, how do you know if you're making the right kind of bets? How do you avoid risks that could actually destroy you? The answer lies in a simple but brutal rule of life: skin in the game. What if I told you that most of the people giving you advice, the so-called experts, the policymakers, the talking heads, have no real stake in whether they're right or wrong, that they can gamble with your future, your money, your well-being, and suffer zero consequences if they fail? This is the world we live in, a world full of decision-makers without skin in the game, people who take risks on your behalf but never put themselves on the line. And that's precisely why so much of what we're told is nonsense. Skin in the game is the brutal, inescapable rule of life. If you benefit from a system, you should also bear its risks. If you have nothing to lose, you have no right to make decisions for others. It's a simple principle, but one that, when violated, creates everything from financial crises to political corruption to corporate fraud. Let's start with Wall Street. The 2008 financial crash wasn't just a market failure, it was a failure of accountability. Banks made reckless bets with other people's money, raked in massive profits when things were good, and when the house of cards collapsed, they got bailed out. No skin in the game, no personal consequences. The average person, meanwhile, lost their home, their savings, their job. This is the ultimate fragility, when those in power can make risky moves without ever suffering the downside. Now, contrast this with entrepreneurs. A real entrepreneur, someone who builds a business from the ground up, is fully exposed. If they succeed, they reap the rewards. If they fail, they lose their time, their money, sometimes everything. That's real accountability. That's skin in the game. The same logic applies to leadership. Think of history's greatest generals. They led from the front, fought alongside their soldiers, took arrows with them. Compare that to modern politicians who send young men and women to war while sitting comfortably behind a desk. Which leader do you trust? The one who risks their own life, or the one who sends others into battle while they stay safe? And this principle isn't just for elites, it applies to you too. If you want respect, credibility, authority in anything, you must have skin in the game. Want to give people financial advice? Invest your own money first. Want to teach others about business? Build something yourself. Want to be taken seriously in any field? Put your own reputation, resources, and effort on the line. But here's the real kicker. Most of society is designed to separate people from consequences. University professors preach about business but have never run one. Political leaders pass economic policies but have never started a company. Corporate executives cut jobs but never take a pay cut. And the result? Fragility. A world where bad ideas flourish because the people making the decisions don't pay for being wrong. The antifragile way? Never take advice from someone who doesn't eat their own cooking. Never trust a person who profits from being right but loses nothing when they're wrong. And most importantly, if you want real success, real influence, real power, make sure you have something on the line. Because in the end, skin in the game is what separates the credible from the clueless, the warriors from the cowards, the winners from the talkers. But there's another layer to this, one that's even more counterintuitive. What if I told you that removing things from your life, rather than adding more, is actually the most powerful strategy for success? That doing less can make you stronger? This brings us to one of the most misunderstood principles of antifragility, via negativa, the power of subtraction. What if I told you that the most powerful way to improve your life isn't by adding more, but by removing what's holding you back? That success, strength, even happiness aren't things you achieve by constant accumulation, but by subtraction, by cutting away the unnecessary, the harmful, the fragile. This is via negativa, the radical idea that the best way forward is often not to do more, but to stop doing what weakens you. We live in a world obsessed with more. More productivity hacks, more self-help books, more superfoods, more routines, more tools, more strategies. But the truth is, most of this isn't making us stronger. It's just noise, clutter, distraction. The ancient Stoics understood this. They believed that the key to a powerful life wasn't adding things, but removing what made you weak. Think of your body. You don't get healthier by adding miracle supplements while still eating junk food. You get healthier by removing the bad food first. Cut the sugar, cut the processed garbage, cut the constant snacking, and your body fixes itself. The same goes for mental clarity. You don't need a new mindfulness app. You need to remove distractions. Cut social media, cut the useless meetings, cut the endless notifications, and suddenly your brain works better. This principle applies to investing, business, even decision-making. The best investors don't get rich by picking more and more stocks. They get rich by avoiding bad bets, removing high-risk losses, and letting compounding do the work. The best businesses don't succeed by trying to sell everything to everyone. They focus, they simplify, they cut the distractions. Even in your career, via negativa is the secret weapon. The fastest way to accelerate your success? Stop doing the things that keep you stagnant. Stop wasting time in meaningless meetings. Stop following the outdated advice of people who have no skin in the game. Stop working a job that drains your energy but gives you nothing in return. And here's the most powerful example of all. mistakes. Avoiding a single catastrophic mistake in life is often more valuable than getting everything right. One bad business deal can wipe out 10 good ones. One terrible relationship can derail years of progress. One reckless risk can undo a lifetime of work. Antifragile people don't just chase upside, they ruthlessly eliminate the things that could break them. This is what makes Via Negativa so powerful. It's not about working harder. It's about removing the unnecessary weight so that what's left is strong, efficient, and anti-fragile. The goal is not to find more ways to grow. It's to stop doing the things that make you weak. So take a hard look at your life. What's making you fragile? What's slowing you down? What's stealing your focus, your energy, your time? Cut it. Eliminate it. Because what you don't do is often far more important than what you do. But here's the thing. Removing harm isn't enough. You can strip away the weaknesses, but if you don't introduce stress in the right way, you won't grow stronger. The antifragile don't just avoid failure. They use small, controlled failures to make themselves immune to disaster. And that brings us to a concept that explains why small chaos prevents big collapses. The power of small-scale volatility. What if I told you that the safest path isn't avoiding failure, it's inviting small failures, embracing them, even seeking them out? That the systems most resistant to disaster are the ones that experience constant low-level stress? That without chaos, we don't become stronger, we become fragile? The world has tricked us into thinking stability is good, that smooth, predictable, well-controlled environments are what we should strive for. But history tells a different story. When we suppress small failures, we don't eliminate them. We only make the eventual collapse catastrophic. Take forest fires. Every year, small fires naturally occur in forests, burning away dry brush, clearing space, preventing an uncontrollable blaze from happening. But when we suppress those fires, when we interfere, when we insist on protecting the forest, we unintentionally create a disaster waiting to happen. The brush builds up, fuel accumulates, and one spark, years later, sets off an inferno that no one can control. Now apply this to your own life. If you avoid small stresses, if you dodge discomfort, if you never test yourself, you aren't protecting yourself. You're weakening yourself. The longer you go without challenges, the less capable you are of handling real adversity when it arrives. And it will arrive. This applies everywhere. Economies that don't experience small recessions explode into full-blown depressions. Athletes who never push their limits end up breaking down under real pressure. Helicopter parenting, shielding kids from every possible failure, creates adults who crumble at the first sign of stress. Look at businesses. A fragile company tries to eliminate all uncertainty, all volatility. It relies on forecasts, predictions, control. But an anti-fragile company? It embraces small shocks. It tests constantly. It experiments. It fails often, but in ways that don't kill it. A startup that pivots, that makes small mistakes, that constantly adjusts, that's the company that survives. You have to apply this principle to yourself. Seek out small stresses, push your limits, expose yourself to challenges, voluntarily embrace discomfort. Take cold showers, fast for a day, speak publicly even if you're terrified. Pick up a skill that humbles you. The goal is to build resilience before life forces it upon you. Because life will test you. The only question is, will you break when it happens, or will you already be trained to thrive in chaos? Small failures aren't something to fear. They're something to welcome. They teach you, they strengthen you, they prepare you for bigger challenges ahead. Suppress them, and you're setting yourself up for collapse. But there's another lesson hidden in all of this. What if I told you that the things most likely to survive the future aren't the newest, trendiest, most cutting-edge inventions, but the things that have already survived for centuries? That the best way to predict what will last is to look at what has already stood the test of time. This is the Lindy Effect. The idea that the longer something has existed, the longer it is likely to continue existing. And understanding this is crucial to making anti-fragile decisions. What if I told you that the best predictor of the future isn't innovation, but time? That the longer something has survived, the longer it's likely to keep surviving? That in a world obsessed with the next big thing, the real secret to longevity lies in what has already proven itself over centuries. This is the Lindy Effect, one of the simplest yet most profound ideas in anti-fragility. It states that the longer something has been around, the longer it is likely to last. A book that has been read for 100 years will likely be read for another 100. A technology that has lasted for centuries is more reliable than the latest flashy invention. A philosophy that has stood the test of time will outlive the newest self-help trend. Think about it. The wheel has been in use for over 5,000 years. Fire, since the dawn of humanity. Mathematics, philosophy, storytelling, these things aren't just old, they're timeless because they have survived every possible test. Meanwhile, how many groundbreaking innovations have come and gone? The latest social media platform, the newest diet craze, the hyped-up productivity method, all vanish as quickly as they appear. The Lindy Effect explains why books that have survived centuries are more valuable than the latest bestseller. Shakespeare, Aristotle, Sun Tzu, these thinkers aren't just names from history, they're intellectual survivors. Their ideas have faced centuries of scrutiny and still hold weight. Compare that to modern business books, where the advice is trendy for a few years before becoming obsolete. And it's not just about knowledge. Old technologies tend to be more reliable than new ones. A bicycle will likely outlast an electric scooter. A cast iron pan will outlive the latest non-stick gadget. Pen and paper will still work when the newest app crashes. This is why anti-fragile people don't just chase the new, they look at what has endured. Even in health and fitness, the Lindy Effect reigns. Fasting, practiced for thousands of years. Strength training, used by warriors and athletes across cultures. Walking, the single most fundamental human exercise. Meanwhile, every decade brings a new diet trend, a new miracle supplement, a new workout fad, most of which disappear just as quickly as they rise. So how do you apply this to your life? Stop chasing the new for the sake of newness. Instead of jumping on the latest trend, ask yourself, has this idea, method, or tool survived the test of time? If the answer is yes, it's probably more reliable than whatever just hit the market. Read old books, follow timeless principles, rely on technology that has proven itself. But here's the trick. This doesn't mean rejecting the new entirely. It means being selective. Some innovations will pass the test of time and become the classics of the future. The goal is to recognize which ones have the potential to become Lindy and which ones are just noise. And that leads us to an even bigger question. How do you position yourself to take advantage of the future while minimizing risk? How do you make sure that when change comes, when chaos strikes, you're not just prepared, but in a position to win? The answer is optionality, designing your life for unlimited upside and minimal downside. What if I told you that the most powerful strategy in life isn't about setting goals, following rigid plans, or even working harder? It's about keeping your options open. That the people who thrive in uncertainty, who survive chaos, who win over the long run, aren't the ones who predict the future best, but the ones who design their lives in a way that lets them adapt to whatever happens. This is the power of optionality, the ability to make decisions that limit your downside while leaving room for unlimited upside. It's the hidden formula behind every anti-fragile success story, from billionaires to groundbreaking innovators, from elite athletes to resilient individuals who thrive in unpredictable environments. Here's how it works. The more options you have, the less fragile you are. If one path fails, you have another. If an opportunity appears, you can take it. If things change, you can adjust. Fragile people lock themselves into rigid plans, assuming the world will stay the same. Anti-fragile people build lives full of escape routes, pivots, and asymmetric bets, so that no single failure can destroy them, and any success can propel them forward. Think about careers. The fragile worker specializes in a niche so specific that one industry shift makes them obsolete. The anti-fragile worker, they cultivate skills that transfer across industries, they network broadly, they have multiple income streams. If one door closes, they have 3 more to walk through. Or take entrepreneurship. The fragile entrepreneur dumps everything into one high-risk venture, betting their entire future on its success. The anti-fragile entrepreneur, they test multiple ideas, experiment, pivot quickly, and never put themselves in a position where one failure wipes them out. They use the barbell strategy, keeping something stable while making high-upside, low-risk bets. And in investing, optionality is the golden rule. Buying into safe, predictable returns with no room for growth is fragile. Going all in on speculative assets is reckless. The anti-fragile approach invests small amounts in high upside opportunities, startups, emerging markets, asymmetric trades, so that even if most fail, a single success more than covers the losses. This is how angel investors and venture capitalists win. They don't need to be right 90% of the time, just once. Even in health, optionality is key. The person who depends on one strict diet or workout routine becomes fragile when it stops working. The antifragile person, they experiment, they listen to their body, they mix fasting, strength training, endurance, all so they can adapt instead of break. And here's where it gets truly powerful. Optionality doesn't just protect you, it exposes you to exponential gains. Every major breakthrough in history, from scientific discoveries to personal success stories, comes from stumbling into the right opportunity, not predicting it. The scientist who experiments widely, the entrepreneur who tests multiple ideas, the creative who puts work out there without knowing what will take off, they don't win because they knew the future. They win because they put themselves in a position where something great could happen. And that's the secret. You don't need to know what will work. You just need to position yourself so that when something does work, you can take full advantage of it. So how do you apply this to your own life? Simple. Stop locking yourself into rigid paths. Give yourself more escape routes. Create situations where you can benefit from uncertainty rather than fear it. Don't get trapped in one career. Develop skills that transfer. Don't commit to one income stream. Build multiple. Don't limit yourself to one way of thinking. Expose yourself to different ideas, different perspectives, different possibilities. Because the truth is, you don't need to be right all the time. You just need to make sure that when you are right, the upside is limitless. And when you're wrong, the downside is trivial. That's what makes you anti-fragile. That's what makes you unstoppable. But there's one final lesson in antifragility, one that ties everything together. It's the reason stress makes us stronger, the reason discomfort fuels growth, the reason hardship can be the greatest gift life gives us. It's called overcompensation and hormesis. Why resistance is the key to strength. What if I told you that everything you've been taught about stress is wrong? That instead of weakening you, the right kind of stress is the fuel for strength? That adversity isn't something to be avoided, but something to be harnessed? This is the paradox of overcompensation and hormesis, the strange, counterintuitive law of nature that says what doesn't kill you doesn't just make you stronger, it makes you better than before. Let's start with something simple. Muscles. When you lift weights, you're not strengthening your muscles, you're damaging them. You're creating tiny tears, forcing your body to repair and rebuild them stronger than before. If you don't stress your muscles, they shrink. If you stress them the right way, they grow, not just to their original state, but beyond it. The same principle applies everywhere. Your immune system, it becomes stronger when exposed to small doses of viruses and bacteria. This is why vaccines work, why kids who play outside get sick less often than those raised in sterile environments. Your bones, they become denser under pressure, which is why astronauts, who live in zero gravity, return to Earth with weaker bones than before. This effect, where stress doesn't just maintain strength but improves it, is called hormesis. It's a biological law, but it also applies to mental toughness, business, relationships, and even entire societies. Take the economy. Businesses that never experience hardship, those that are protected from competition, from failure, from volatility, become weak. They stagnate, they lose innovation, they collapse at the first real crisis. But businesses that struggle, that face small failures, that are forced to constantly adapt, they become anti-fragile. They don't just survive downturns, they thrive in them. And this is true for people too. The most successful individuals, the leaders, the innovators, the legends, didn't get there by avoiding stress. They got there by enduring it, by using it, by overcompensating in response to adversity. The self-made millionaire who started from nothing, the athlete who trained through injury, the artist who struggled for years before recognition, these people didn't break under stress. They transformed because of it. But here's where it gets even crazier. Too little stress is just as harmful as too much. A child who is overprotected, who never faces struggle, who is shielded from discomfort, what happens? They grow up fragile, unable to handle the smallest challenges. A business that never faces competition becomes bloated, inefficient, weak. A person who never steps outside their comfort zone stays stagnant, watching life pass them by. This is why discomfort is essential. It's why cold showers, fasting, intense exercise, difficult conversations, and calculated risks aren't just things to tolerate. They're things to actively seek out. Because every time you expose yourself to controlled stress, you don't just get through it, you overcompensate, you become stronger than before. So how do you apply this to your life? Stop avoiding stress, start choosing it. Introduce strategic discomfort into your routine. Lift heavier weights. Challenge yourself with harder work. Face your fears. Take on projects that feel slightly out of reach. Instead of seeing stress as something to manage, see it as something to use. Because here's the ultimate truth. Fragile people fear stress. Anti-fragile people feed off it. And that's the entire philosophy of Antifragile in a single sentence. Everything we've covered, from the Barbell Strategy to skin in the game, from via Negativa to Optionality, comes down to one thing. Stop avoiding volatility. Start using it. Because in the end, life isn't predictable. Chaos will come. Uncertainty is guaranteed. The question isn't if you'll face stress, it's how you'll respond to it. And the anti-fragile, they don't just survive, they become stronger than before.